All right, to start with, this was your assignment, still is your assignment, okay? Now, I'm going to show you today one way that you can handle this without having a 404 error. If you decide, I'd rather have you not do it the way I'm going to show you, because we're just going to kind of cheese it. I'd like you to try to put in a new 404 page. That'll cause you to create a new page. That'll cause you to go into your routes and route to that new page. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Okay. As far as the styling, what I'm going to do is on Monday, I mentioned that I kind of this is what it looks like now, and you know what it looks like. It doesn't look very nice, really, okay? But what I'm going to do is I've been taking a look in here, and I found this 23. It's got 23 bootstrap card styles for 2021, and I've been going through them. All right, and I picked out 2 or 3. So this one I thought isn't bad. This one isn't bad, although I guess I don't like the colors on it. And this one isn't bad. So I'm going to grab one of those, and I'm going to walk through on Monday what you have to do. Most of the stuff you know how to do it, but it's where to put the stuff that is actually going to matter. So we'll do some of that styling together as a class. You can still go back later and add different icons. You can add different fonts, different colors, etc. But we'll do some of that stuff together. Okay? All right. So with that said, I'm just going to bring the project back up, and we are going to, in just a second, continue on. I wanted to show you something, and I recently found out about this, so I'm showing it to you because I recently found out about it. Okay? If you would please, I'm going to take for granted that you are in Visual Studio Code. Okay? And we looked at this yesterday, but it didn't work very well. It's not going to work for me right now if I hit F1. And it's not going to work if I hit F1 just because of the fact that F1 is set up to something different with Camtasia running. All right? But and you don't have to do this, but if I do a Control-Shift-P, it brings up that thing I showed you yesterday. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but notice right underneath it, we want to do the format document. So notice there's a shortcut for that. You see the Shift-Alt-F? Everybody see that? So the only reason I'm showing you this, so it's Shift-Alt-F. I'm going to grab this fetch, this thing right here. I'm going to just purposely do this to it. Look on the screen if you would. And I'm going to do this. So now it looks pretty bad. I think you'd agree with that. All right, but if I go back and I do another, whatever we said it was, Shift-Alt-F, watch what happens. So Shift-Alt-F. See what it did? It automatically formats it for you, which I think is nice. All right, a lot of times you'll copy some code from here to there and the formatting will get all screwed up. So this is one way that you can bring it back. All right, and adding on top of that, let's see, just so you see this, if you go to File and you go to Preferences, which is down on the bottom, and you go to Settings, which is up on the top. So if you do a File, Preferences, Settings, it's going to bring this up. And if you type in here, Format, there's going to be different options. I think I showed you this. This should automatically do it for us now when you save. All right, so it's File, Preferences, Settings. And you just check the box that says Format on Save. Now, there's other ones. If you want to format every time you paste it, you can click that one too. I'm not telling you what to do. All right, but it's just something that you might want to consider doing. All right, and if you don't, not a problem. Okay, so I mentioned this before that I've already implemented a bunch of these changes, so let me show you what I've implemented to start with. This isn't going to take that long. Hopefully we'll be done with this by 1 o'clock. All right, then we'll take a break, and then we're going to go and watch a little bit of Scrimba. All right, and we'll just see how it goes from there. But I'm just going to come in and do a file save. I don't think I've reformatted it, but I don't think I've changed anything in here. But if I go back to the program now, and again, I know you've seen the program already, but right now, the way yours is set up, and we're going to fix this in just a moment, but the way yours is set up is if I go in here and I type in Lord of the Rings, and I search, Now, this is mine, not yours. If you click the back button on yours, all right, or if you click movie details and then you click the back button, yours is gone here. Your stuff is gone. We're going to right now implement it so your stuff stays. The other thing, too, is if I come in here and do this, and I know there's no movie by that name, and I click search, that's what I'm doing now. I don't really like that. I'd rather have it come off to a 404 page because I think that's more reminiscent of what happens in an actual website. When you go in and you put in a URL that doesn't exist, now that's me speaking, you may or may not agree. All right? Now, does that make sense to everybody? All right, so let's go in and implement that stuff right now. All right, now I mentioned yesterday we were going to use local storage, and we are. Now, before we do, because I ran through it kind of quickly yesterday, but I'm going to type in here W3 Schools local storage, and I'm going to bring this up, the W3 Schools local storage property. Again, this is a set of key value pairs. So we've got a key called last name with a value of Smith, for example. Does that make sense? All right. What we are going to do with this is we really aren't using a database with this, but we want to be able to keep track of certain things. All right. So it says here, the local storage and session storage properties allow you to save key value pairs in the web browser. The local storage technically has no expiration date. The data will not be deleted when the browser is closed. So it'll be available. And I think I've given you this example before, but on the off chance I have not. All right. I remember years ago I went out to buy a CD. All right. And I went out to the site and filled out everything. Then for some reason I got called away or whatever. I never bought it. But my stuff was in my shopping cart. And I didn't go back to that site for quite a while. It was over a year. But when I went back, lo and behold, what was still in there in my shopping cart was that CD. All right, because it had used local storage. All right, that's how they saved it. Technically, it's not in a database. It's not being saved anywhere, but it's in the browser someplace. There's also session storage. And with session storage, normally what happens is it saves it until you bring the browser down. Your session is over. Now, sometimes it'll save it up to maybe 20 more minutes, but then it's gone. All right? Well, we're just going to use the local storage. And if you take a look in here, you'll notice that when you use it, it should look at least somewhat familiar to you because there's a set and there's a get. And we've looked at sets before, and we've looked at gets before. And I'm sure Ms. Shelton here would tell you that we use sets and gets a lot next semester in the Android class. So it's not like this stuff is going to be going away. So when we go over it, if something doesn't totally make sense, you can always go back here, of course, and take a look. The stuff that we're going to be putting in here is, I mean, it's nothing fantastic or anything else. All right. So going back to the program then, and I'm going to go into MovieList, into the MovieList file right here, okay? And in that MovieList, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go down to your, you don't have it in there, you don't have that, don't worry, because everything that you've got here, you're going to get, all right? You've got a thing up here that looks something like this, const movie URL. Can you find that, please, in your movielist.js file? After you've got that file, hit enter once or twice, and this is what we're going to put in. Now, you don't need the added Fridays, so I'm going to get rid of that. I don't need it either. But this is where we're setting up local storage. All right? So we're calling it our local storage. The name of the local storage thing will be search term, and we're going to refer to the value in there as movie. Movie, like this. If you didn't use movie right here, put whatever is in here in there. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. All right. Everybody got that? Okay. All right, then I'm going to jump up then to the top of the program. And right now, I think that you are using useState, but you probably don't have useEffect. You may or may not. I don't remember if I told you to do that yesterday or not. But at least on the chance you don't, make sure your line 1 or wherever you've got that line looks like my line. Okay, so you want to import both useState and useEffect. I found an article that I got sent a couple days ago on useEffect. I'm going to send you that link today. I didn't yet. You maybe never read any of those, but the point is, it'd be a pretty doggone good idea if you were going in for a job and it was a full stack developer that you knew something about these different things that are in React. Okay? All right. So since we put in a useEffect, we've got to write some kind of a useEffect in here. So I'm going to come down to here, and you don't have this either. Don't worry about this because I don't want you to put it in until we talk about it. Okay? But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in a useEffect. All right? And we're going to put in, I don't know, 3 or 4 lines, maybe 5 or 6. I don't know, but I commented this stuff today. So get the movie name from local storage. All right. So and I just called it term because we're using search term. So this is a local variable. Equal local storage dot get item, and the item we want to get is search term. All right. Now, that either there will be a value there or there won't be a value there. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. It's possible there's nothing in there. There could be garbage in there. It doesn't really matter. Whatever we put in for the movie name. But if we put nothing in there and we click that search button, then that search term is empty because there's nothing in there. So really, we only want to be handling this if there was something put in there. So we can just shorten it up to if term. That just means that if it's not empty. So if term, we're just going to say handle click, not change, I'm sorry, handle click, and we're going to pass it in the term. But this should only now call our handle thing in here. It should only put that in and handle that, all right, if there was a term actually put in there. Okay? All right, one more thing that we're going to do. I'm going to get rid of this and this and this. I'd already put it in. That's what I'm doing right now, just so you know. Now, what can happen with this, I'm not saying it will, but every single time, this may end up calling useEffect and useEffect and useEffect and useEffect, and it may call it a bunch of times as opposed to just calling it once. And if that happens, you're going to get some flicker. Do you all know what flicker is? All right, and it's not going to look professional. So we're going to come into here, in this line that's empty right here, or this that's got these two things, we're going to put here a comma, then bracket, bracket, which means only call it once for each search term that we put in. Don't continue to call it. Just call it one time. All right? So, hopefully at least, hopefully, if you do a file and you do a save now, all right, and go run your program again. All right, so do a file save and run your program, and then go into the search and put a value in there. It should come up and find something. Click your movie details button that's in there. And then go back again. Click your back button from your movie details, and when you do, it should still show the stuff that was there. Does what I say make sense? No, go click right up above that. No, there. Try putting in another right curly brace. Usually that's what it is. Did it work? Yes, did it work? Now remember, we put that in there, right? We put in that curly, but it's not impossible that the curly was put in the wrong place.
Okay.
For instance, look right here, you've got here, return movie, let's see, your div. Okay, that looks like it would be correct, but there could be something up above that's screwed up with where you've got,
Okay.
I mean, yesterday I was working, just so you know, I was working on mine yesterday, and stuff wasn't working. I was missing this. I didn't have that curly in there. And I never noticed it. I don't know why, but I just kept looking right past it. All right? And what were you saying, Gabriel?
Mine work.
Good.
It's still getting it because I got an iron. Small one.
Okay. Well, we can always go and take a look at it a bit. All right. The next thing that we are going to want to do is we are going to want to put in another button. Now, we've already got a button down here, right? You've got this button for search, so I copied it, and I'd like you to and put this in. What's in blue right there. All right? I did have it over multiple lines. I just moved it since there is room now. I moved it and just put it all on one line. Now, you'll notice a couple things. We're not passing any parameter into that. So it's boom, we just want to call that function. So we don't have to call it like an arrow function, because here we were actually doing something. Here we just want to clear the screen. All right? Don't worry about this stuff on the bottom. We're going to do that next. All right? So don't worry about this thing that's down here. We'll do that in just a bit. All right? So what this says is it should put up a new button on our screen, and that new button should have on for its value the word clear. Does that make sense? All right, so just save. You don't have to run it or anything, because we don't have that written yet. I do, but you don't. So right under your handle click that you've got, right under the handle click that's right here, this handle click, come down and write your handle clear screen. If you don't like my name, call it something else. Doesn't really matter. But that's it. Now, don't run it yet, because this set no movie found, you're going to have a problem with yours, because we don't have that yet. We're going to do that next. So what's happening in there, set movies is setting basically, when we call set movies, it's basically going to give us all the movies we have. We're telling it to clear it. We don't want that to show. That's going to remove all the movies that are showing on the screen. The search term, I thought what that was going to do was to clear out the text box, but it's not. It is clearing out the search term, but it's not clearing out the text box. I'm going to have to keep working on that, but I'm not worried about that right now. We're removing the search term from local storage, and notice we've got a thing called set no movie found. We're not setting it to true. We're not setting it to false. All right? And let me show you this. Don't worry about putting this in, because I'm going to change it back right away. But I'm going to come into here where I've got it set to nothing, and I'm going to set it to false. I don't want you to do this, but I'm going to set it to false. I'm going to save this. Now I'm going to come back here. I don't want that to come up right away. See that? That's what this is going to do. So instead of having that come up and say no movie found like that, we're setting it not to false, but we're setting it to, oops, null, whatever. You know, we're setting it to the empty string. Now, if I bring that up, you'll notice if I refresh, well, it shouldn't be showing that, but it is. All right. We probably could even come in there and set it to the word null. There's just one problem with that. All right. That rather than, there are movies with the word null in the title, and that can screw things up. So I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Now, so we've got this thing in here called set no movie found that you don't have. So I want you to go back up and add this line underneath the two constants that you currently have. So we're creating a Boolean variable that we're initializing to false called no movie found. All right? And when we want to set it, we're calling set no movie found. Again, we're following React best practices. All right? Everybody there? You've all got it? Good. All right, because believe it or not, we're almost done. Now, you don't have to do this. But if you went and ran this on yours right now and you put in something like that, all right, and you clicked search, you wouldn't get no movie found. You'd get an error message. We're going to fix that right now. Okay? So what I want you to do is on your movie list page, the one that we're on, okay, where we've got the fetch, right now your fetch does not look like mine. Your second then statement, I want you to change so it looks like that. Yours right now just says something like set movies result.search. I want it to look the way that it looks here on mine. So it's the second then statement that's in there. Go ahead and put it in, then we'll talk about what it means. Does everybody have it now? All right. Again, I had promised you that I was going to try to do this with no or with no semicolons, so I'm trying to remember to. Whenever I'm adding them, I'm trying to remember to take them out. All right. There's another one I put in. Another one that I put in. Another one I put in. More. All right, before I show you this, and I am going to, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab this. You don't have to do this, okay? But I'm going to come in here, and this is sort of something Mr. Breeding talked about yesterday, what I'm about to do. All right, at least I think it is. So I can come in here and I can put this in. And instead of putting S equal movie, I can come in here, for example, and I can put in Batman. Makes sense? All right. But if I come in here and I say, I fat finger, and I say Blatman, which I don't think there are any movies with Blatman. All right. See this error? That's result.error that we're checking in our code. Does that make sense? All right. So what we're saying in here in English is, all right, try to fetch the movie. If we get an error result, we don't want to render anything. So we're saying set our movies to an empty array. We don't want anything to show. And set no movie found to be true. That set no movie found is the thing we're working with this that we just added up here. All right, so it's false initially. We're setting it to true. All right, but if it did work, if everything is cool, then this is what we had in there originally. We still want to do this. And we want to set no movie found to false because it was a valid query that we put in. Does all that make sense? All right. So there's really only about one more thing that you have to do. Okay? We've got this set no movie found, but yours isn't going to show because you've got to put it in. So you can add this line. So put that line in, and then we will take a minute to go over what that line means. Should be right up above the ending div. And I can get rid of this. Put that in automatically. Yep. Now, in English, remember, this is a shortcut. This is the same thing as the equivalent of if no movie found equal true. That's a shortcut for that. So if there is no movie found, we're just going to show an H1 on our page that says no movie found. If it's false, meaning it found movies, we're going to do nothing. Does that make sense? So go ahead, save it, try it on yours, and make sure nothing's broken. All right? And try to put in a movie that doesn't exist, and you should get that message. No movie found. If you don't like that message, you could put in a different one. Questions? Is it working? So I wouldn't call this the most difficult program that we've ever done, but it did introduce us to doing something and doing something new. All right? Now, just so you know, okay, you know what your homework is now. All right? But I do want to give you something that's going to at least be reminiscent of a test. I haven't written it up yet, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to have you do. All right? I'd like you all, please, if you would, right now, to go out to github.com/public-apis/public-apis. So let me grab it for you, and I'll put it up here much, oops, try that again. Put it up here much bigger. So I want you to go there. All right? If you go out there, and of course you already know you don't need that, you can just go to here. But if you go out here, it has some of the available public APIs. All right? And if you look, it's in alphabetic order. But I'd like you to go and look and see something that you might be interested in creating a program on. Now, I'm just going to show you this. I probably shouldn't, but I am anyway. A popular one is this one. And you can go out and you can literally find working React apps. I bet you could find 20 or 30 of them right now if you went out and Googled it and looked on YouTube. I don't think that's a great learning experience. All right? So I'd rather have you not choose that one. But if for some reason you go, no, I really want to use that one, okay, then use that one. All right, but these are all different APIs that are, that are weather APIs, for example. And when you look in here, you'll notice that, again, this by no means is an exhaustive list. I'll bet you that there are there are probably upwards of 1 million of these, really. All right? But if there's something, let's say that Angie would be really interested in doing something fairly, let's say, simple about books, you can look in here. All right? And I haven't written this up yet. I'm going to write it up this weekend. I'm going to give it to you on Monday. All right? Okay. Questions? Did yours work?
No, I think it's just typographical. So
All right. All right. And I think he said he's got an error too, but your two both work. Okay. All right. Then we will work on those errors during the break. Now, if you look up on the screen here, I'm going to close a couple of these things. Where am I? I thought I had it open. Maybe I don't. There we go. This is kind of where we left off last time. We looked at fetching data from an API with React. But we didn't really look at using React with forms. And you'll notice it's a two-part series. So I'd like us to go through that right now. React Forms Part 1 and React Forms Part 2. I'm not going to make you sit through this practice. No. But we're going to go through these two things right now. And then we're going to look at the React container and component architecture. I'm going to skip this thing here that says React meme generator. I went through it. It's okay. All right. But we're going to go in. Why? Because I want you to see this. Because this is a guy who's been doing this a lot longer than I have. To talk about use state and talk about use effect. And I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's important for you to listen to that stuff. So what my plan is today, right now, we're going to go and I don't think you really have to watch this one again. We did look at this one as a class, but if you want, if you want, you can go back and look at it. But I'm going to go through the React Forms Part 1, then the React Forms Part 2. I'm going to skip the practice. You can do that on your own if you're interested. But I'm going to go through those two, and then the React container and component architecture. That's what I'm going to do for today. That'll get us till somewhere around getting a break in there, 1:30 or so. All right? And then we will pick it up on Monday. I'm going to go over the hooks intro, the use state Part 1 and 2, the use effect Part 1 and 2. And that's it. All right? So when you look at that, that's what, 2 minutes? It's about 9 minutes, 17 minutes, 25. It's about 35 minutes that we'll do on Monday. And that's what we're going to start with. And then today it's, what, 12 and 15, it's 27 and 11. So it's about 38 minutes today. So collectively it's about an hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes. All right? So I want to go over that. Now, I do believe, I tried this before, but I do believe, and maybe I'm wrong, that when I come in here, I don't think I'm gonna get sound. That's why I brought in the other computer
Let's talk a
again.
little bit about forms in React. Forms
No matter
tend
what
to
I
be
try
actually
doing.
a really important part of having a web
Well,
application.
even at 100%,
And I
it's
found
not
from
giving me
teaching
sound,
students at
so
Let's talk
as
a
I
little
have
bit
done
about
in the
forms
past,
in
I'm gonna
React.
go and
Forms
bring this
tend to
computer
be
up
actually a really
and try to
important
keep
part
these two
of
in
having a
sync
web
as much as
application.
possible.
And I found from teaching students at
We'll watch
B-School
the
that
first
it's
one,
actually a
then we'll
rather
take a
tricky
break,
part
'cause it'll be
of
close
React
to 1 o'clock,
because
and we'll
we
watch
do
the
things a
other
little
two.
bit differently
The
than we're
rest
used
of
to
the
when it
period
comes to
today
forms.
will be
So I'm going to do something a little bit different in that I want you to do a couple things.